for because Charleton Churchill has done some amazing things in a very short period of time. He is the first photographer to document a wedding at base camp where the bride and groom are wearing a wedding dress and tuxedo. He recently gave a TED Talk on adventure weddings at California State University in Sacramento, California, and his work has appeared around the world in news, online, and his stories have been told on the radio and TV, including the Kelly and Ryan Live Show and the Today Show. He's recently been called one of the top 100 wedding photographers online in the US and Canada, and he's here today with his program entitled Creating the Epic Images Chasing the Veti on Mount Everest. Welcome to the Nikon Theater stage, Mr. Charleton Churchill.
Thanks, buddy. All right, how are you all doing? Get ready, put your seatbelts on. We're gonna go on an epic journey together. Are you ready? Good, I'm ready. All right, the Yeti. Who knows what a Yeti is? Anybody know what a Yeti is? Great, nobody. A Yeti is like the abominable snowman, which is where it came from in like the 1920s, like the Himalayan Bigfoot, basically, in Nepal. Everybody's been searching for it, and so they haven't found it, but there's a lot of footprints, and people have seen it, but not really identified it. So I'm gonna talk about my Yeti that I found on Mount Everest. Right here, we are at base camp, and this is one of the weddings that hit the news and the media around the whole world. Internationally, it was trending in Australia and different places around the world. Here, we are at base camp at around 17,500 feet, and the groom got sick. He was developing altitude sickness, which is usually what happens at high altitude. So we had to get off the mountain quickly. So we had an hour and a half to photograph the wedding, some pictures, get some food in our tummies, and then get off the mountain and get out of there soon for safety. So I'm gonna talk to you today about this Mount Everest wedding, but also how to create epic images. But first, I want you all to watch my video of my summary of mountain adventure weddings. Adventure. All right, so thank you for that one clap. There we go, okay. So I'm gonna talk to you today a little about creating an epic image, and so let's get on with this. So how I started this epic endeavor. First of all, I'm a big mountain climber. I have a passion for mountaineering and hiking high altitude mountains. So when I landed on Denali in Alaska for my trip that I've been preparing for a long time, I landed in a Cessna plane. We were at about 8,000 feet. There were big mountains around me. And as I got off the plane in about 0 degrees temperatures or 10 degrees, I looked around. Again, I had been playing this for a long time, 2007. I got off the plane, and I looked around, and I started crying because it hit my heart. It was so impacting and amazing, better than I experienced. So I started here at this camp on Denali in Alaska, crying because I love nature. I love epicness. I love beauty of the mountaineering. Here's a shot on Denali as well. A lot harsher temperatures than Mount Everest. Definitely windy. I fell in a crevasse, but I was roped up, so it was all good. Here's one of my teammates who was suffering from hypothermia, losing feeling in his arm, and we had to get him to camp quickly. Get him some hot chocolate and some warm drink, make sure he gets better. Because you can die within 30 minutes if you get hypothermia. So you have to be really quick to act on it. So mountaineering is a dangerous sport. This is 20,000 feet in Alaska, and this is one of our rope teams. The girl in the yellow, she actually passed away a year later in an avalanche with her brother in Colorado. So mountaineering is definitely a dangerous sport. I started shooting weddings. I didn't like weddings. I thought they were cheesy. I thought the whole, like blowing kisses, behind the back stuff. I thought, oh, I don't want to do that stuff. But someone asked me to shoot a wedding because I shot photography. So I shot my first wedding, and I liked it. So I started shooting these kind of weddings, walking down the aisle, candid moments, dad's crying, mom's crying, the daughter's crying. It's just lovely moments, capturing sunlight, the beauty of the wedding couple. So I love doing that stuff, but I thought, how can I actually create something with weddings to make myself stand out, which is mountaineering. I love mountaineering, but how can I use that for wedding photography to make me different from everybody else? So I started this thing called adventure weddings, which is a new term in the last few years here. What is the definition of adventure? Here we go. Number one, to take the chance. This is very key in adventure weddings, but not just adventure. I'm not talking about like climbing Mount Everest. I'm talking about even your backyard, any place around the whole world. You can do adventure with any wedding couple. So the first one is taking a chance. It's doing something that's maybe a little scary, maybe a little unrestful. Also, it's exciting. How many of you have seen Star Wars, the most recent one? How many of you guys are Star Wars geeks? Admit it, come on, raise your hand. So I was there the first night. I walked in, Chewbacca, people wearing lightsabers or Chewbacca outfits. They were all excited. You sit down in the theater seats, and you stand in front of the theater, and suddenly the words roll up on the screen, the music starts, and if you're a Star Wars geek, you start getting crazy and excited because it's Star Wars. This is excitement. It's not just fun. It gets your heart going. Chemicals are produced in your body that make you excited. That's excitement. Also, unusual experience. Adventure weddings require unusual experiences, places you haven't been before. And if you go to a place where you haven't been before, it's a little unnerving. Sometimes it's lonely because you're going into uncharted territory. Places where people haven't gone, it's harder to do, but in the end, you get amazing results. And the last one is an uncertain outcome. You never know where you're going to go, what you're going to get. So that's adventure. I want to quickly talk about my machine, how I run my business as an adventure wedding photographer. Number one, adventure. You get them to do an adventurous activity. You hike somewhere, you climb somewhere, you go on a backyard journey. And then the next part is an experience. They have an experience which could be very emotional, it could be exciting, it could be scary, it could be dreadful, but it's an emotional experience. You want your couples to have an emotional and good experience with your business. Every business here in Las Vegas, if you walk out, they're trying to entertain you, they're trying to give you a good experience. If you go to Starbucks, they want to give you a good experience. Why? Because they relate good experiences with good business. After experience, you have a story to tell. And that story requires history, memory, sharing. And there's lots of stories. You have an emotional experience, and then you have a story to tell, right? And I have couples who have amazing experiences, and then they hang a picture on their wall. And it's different from a wedding, because when they walk into that couple's house, it's not just a wedding picture, it's a picture with a story. So when the couples walk in, they say, whoa, that's a great image. What happened there? I said, oh, there's a big story behind that. Huge story. I got to tell you about this. So it's not just like, oh, we got married, we got kissed, whatever. It's a great story behind it. And the last one It's transformation. As a result of the adventure, you're transformed. You feel more courageous. You feel more confident. You feel like you can take on bigger mountains, right? So here's an adventure wedding. Couple stands on the ledge. They're scared. He's definitely scared. I have a radio with me. I say, how do you feel? He said, I'm a little scared. I said, good. I said, how far can you go? He said, this is good enough. I said, cool. A lot of times in these shots here, you don't need to stand on the ledge to get that epic shot. You can stand before it so you have lots of room to fall. If you need to fall or sit down, there's a lot of space here. So this is an epic shot of contrast. Here's another one, Half Dome Yosemite. And we hiked 16 miles round trip to get here for this shot. I don't do that anymore with this couple because I can get the same shot somewhere else. And it's like 60 miles. And they usually couples are a little, it's supposed to take me like 5 to 6 hours to hike Half Dome round trip. This couple took 12 hours. That's way more than I wanted to spend. This is in Hawaii, and I just had an idea. It was midnight. She was tired. I was tired. I had this epic shot planned, so she's like, I don't really want to do this shot. I said, I don't either, but I'm tired, but I have this vision. Trust me. So we got to this place. We drove an hour, got here. I took 6 shots, and I left, and this won an international award. Stories, right? We see a bear in the wilderness, and the makeup artist runs backwards. She gets out. She's done. She's out of there. I see lots of bears. I've had bears sniff my faces while I'm sleeping. I've seen lots of wildlife. This bear went off trail. There were 2 bears, and I said, hurry, let's get a shot of the bear. We got to go get this bear. And so they were running for the bear, and he goes off trail, and all I got was this shot. But it's a story, and they were excited about the story. So when they go back home, they're like, hey, we saw a bear. And I see lots of bears, but to them, it's new. It's an experience. Here's Alaska. The couple flew to Alaska with me, because this was my vision. I was looking for a couple to go to an ice cave out far away, which I didn't know how to get there, how long it was going to take. But we hiked in the wilderness across glaciers and a lake, right? And we had a makeup artist along there as well. And it was like 20 degrees, I think. It was pretty cold. We got to this ice cave and got this shot. We got in further, and then we got this shot. So this is what I had visioned in mind, but then we had some time afterwards when we got back to get these shots too. And by the way, I'm very safe with what I do. So this right here looks dangerous, but I had my crazy assistant friend jump out on that spot over and over again to make sure you wouldn't fall through and then die. I don't do that stuff. I have other people do it for me. I'm just kidding. I have to do it a lot. But this couple walked out. I got a big epic shot. And the snow was snowing, blizzardy. We had an eagle shot here. Here's a shot with a Nikon D750. And I like these photos because I had the 70 to 200 lens, 2.8. And I put a coupler on it, an extension, so it's a 2.0 extension. So it turns it into a 140 to 400 lens, right? So the shot before, let me go backwards. This shot right here is like a 35 millimeter lens. So the background seems far away. And then you have this shot here, and it's a 70 to 200, not even at 400. And it compresses the mountain to seem really close on the very back. So if you want that background to seem really large and behind the couple, then you put an extension on it by 2x, and that makes it really big and them really small. And this is a few shots in the cold. Okay, now this is the same couple a year later on their wedding day. And I'm going to go back to the story and emotional and experiences, because this couple had such an emotional experience and a story that on their first look, she made a book about their adventure wedding, right? What's it say? Our adventure book, based on the adventure they went on. And then they gave the book to each other. He had a book too, and they were crying and emotional. So these adventures create stories and connection. And that's what I like to do. It's not just shooting great pictures. It's creating intimacy together. It's creating connection and then creating an emotional experience. Epic adventure is more about the experience than the destination. This is what I learned on my first Everest trip. So when I take couples, I photograph them. It's about the experience and the journey rather than the destination. So this couple is in Norway. We hiked there. We hiked this crazy cliff. I mean, it took forever to find this spot. We're racing to find this spot because I saw it online. We flew north of Norway, and I'm thinking, where's this mountain that I saw online that I see hikers go to sometimes? So we hiked up this big mountain. I got this shot, and then I walked up the mountain, and I had them walk back down because the shot I was after was the shot right here. And then, of course, the icing. Sunset's shining. I'm like, hey, hang out, kiss, right? Stand on the ledge, get a bridal shot here and there. And then the next day we flew somewhere else with 2 hours sleep and a flat tire that cost me $1,500 to repair, which that's another story. That's an adventurous story. I'll tell you later. But this is a 4-mile hike with a couple. And so we hiked here, and there's a lot of people. I cut them all out. I didn't want to do the Photoshop work with it, but like 40 people on a rock and just like cut them all out. I said, hey, tell them to move, because I climbed up this big mountain to get a shot lower on the mountain. And I had my 24 to 120 lens. I use that a lot, by the way, when I'm doing a lot of hiking adventures, the 24 to 120 f4, because it's light and it covers everything. I can carry it on me for quick shots. And I have other lenses too I'll share with you. So how did I get this Everest job? Some of you guys were asking about marketing earlier. This is how it all started. It started with the Purple Cow Effect by Seth Godin. Basically, the idea is this. If you see a brown cow or a black cow, you really don't care because you've seen it before. Or at least if you live in the farmland. If you're a city person in LA, you might have never seen a brown cow before. That's okay. But if you see a purple cow, you might back up in your car, get out of your car, take an iPhone shot, Instagram it, Facebook it, whatever you do, and suddenly it goes viral, and people are talking about it, and they're flying from different parts of the country to get a shot with the purple cow. But since we're talking about Yetis, I prefer to call it the Purple Yeti effect. Now that's even more interesting to see a purple Yeti. My purple cow is Mount Everest. In 2015, I blogged, in 2011 or 12, I believe it is, I blogged saying, I am available to do a Mount Everest wedding if anybody's out there. And I got some hooks, right? People calling me, hey, we'd like to do this Mount Everest wedding. The third couple to call me said, we'd like to do it. Great, awesome. We started doing it. We hiked halfway up the mountain. And there's a lot more to share here, which will be my platform class tomorrow at 3 o'clock, but for now, we're cutting it short. Earthquake happens halfway up the mountain. The ground's rolling, people are screaming and running, people are jumping out of windows. All our Sherpas lost their homes. We had 6 yak fell off the cliff and died. We had just chaos everywhere. I'm running for my life. We couldn't get married. They couldn't get married. So I had this guy here in the village who's the father of the village show me around for 1 hour. All he could say to all these homes that were crushed, because he couldn't speak English, he said, all gone, all gone. That's all he could say. Crushed homes everywhere. Crushed homes. Families living in big homes like that. The couple did not want to get married. Too traumatic. We hung out for 4 days at a camp while people died below us and people died above us. We were on the news. It was going over everywhere. We get down lower in the mountain, and I talked the couple into doing their wedding. And I said, I know it's all traumatic, but what if we turn this into something beautiful? Because it doesn't all have to be sad and dark. Let's make this something beautiful out of the darkness. They said, okay. They decided to get married. They got married, and we got to this temple on the mountain. And they got married. It was emotional. And this right here is one of my favorite photos of this couple, because for 4 days we were sad. People were crying. There was loss and suffering and fear of our lives. And this right here is a great image because it's not perfect, but everybody's laughing and cheering and throwing rice. So much excitement because this was the first happy moment in 4 days we experienced. For them, their adventure didn't end, on the base camp of Everest, but they went home with a wedding story that they'll never forget. And so this next picture is a picture of them showing that they conquered all and they overcame despite the odds. Fast forward to 2017, last year. Went back to Everest with another couple. They called me and said, hey, go back here. They said, hey, we saw you on Instagram. We would like to do an adventure wedding with you. I said, great, where? They said, I don't know, where do you want to go? Like, where do I want to go? And originally I wasn't going to go back, but I said, well, where do you want to go? What do you like? And she said, well, some like tropical, beachy, you know. And I said, how about Mount Everest? So actually, they were hikers and mountaineers, and they're adventurers. And she just got through reading the book by John Krakauer, you know, Into Thin Air. She's like, that would be awesome. So they said yes. I'm like, yes, I'm going back. I was excited, but I was a little hesitant too because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. Again, that's adventure. You never know what's going to happen. So what I'd like to share with you now, and we're going to rush through some points after this is over, is my Everest slideshow of the trip in a summary. So get ready to watch this music slideshow. All right, so that's pretty crazy, huh? So here we go. We're going to go pretty fast here. How to create the epic image. First of all, gear checklist. I want to share this real quick. I brought a lot of lenses to Mount Everest. I brought like the 72-200. I was like packing heavy. We had Sherpas carrying our bags, so I had help. It's cheating, but we had to do it. But I brought two Nikon D750s, a Nikon D810, which now I had the Nikon D850. And then I had the 35, I had the 50, the 85, the 1635, 24, 120, and then the Nikon Speedlight. And I had other things too, but that's my basic gear kit that I have for most adventure weddings. For the almost 3 weeks, 2 weeks that we were up there, I had a Nikon D750 with a 24-120 that I used 99% of the time. All those images you just saw, Nikon 24-120. You can create an awesome wedding slideshow with just a 24-120. That's crazy. That's crazy. So all these lenses I had in my bag, I couldn't use because it was windy. It was 0 degrees a lot of the times. We had some dust storms. And again, I had you're carrying your camera not around your neck because you don't want to cut off circulation, but you carry it around your strap so it doesn't fling back and forth. You carabiner it in. So I'm using that most of the time for action shots. Tomorrow I'll be sharing a little bit more of my platform class, but this is some of the stuff I brought as well. I'll email this to you if you want request it. So here we go. How to create an epic image. Number one, find epic locations. You have to search for epic locations to get your epic shots. You're like, where's an epic shot? Well, there's tons. How about this? How many national parks are in the U.S.? There's 58 national parks in the U.S. Okay, how many state parks in the U.S.? Check this out. 10,234 places to create an epic shot. How about national forests, reservoirs, BLM land, SPI, etc., and then, of course, international state parks and national parks, etc. So find some cool locations, and I Google a lot. I save a lot of stuff. Seek unusual experiences. This is the airport, #1 most dangerous airport in the world, in Lukla, Nepal. Short landing strip. A lot of people die because they come off the strip and they can't come off because it's not enough speed, or they crash into the wall. So it's the most dangerous airport in the world, and it's an unusual experience. Going across bridges, taking shots of them as they're walking across, laughing, having a good time. And this is one that you need to focus on. Is number 3 is create contrast between what is huge and epic and then what is fragile as a human together in love. And if you can show contrast between amazingness and love, then you have an epic image, right? So here's a shot where he's struggling in the mountain range, and it's just like epic backdrop, but he's struggling. Epicness. And I hate the word epic because it's overused and cliche, but I want to use it to its fullest extent for my weddings. Capture pain. Don't be afraid to get in there and capture pain. He was suffering. I asked him, how you feeling? He said, oh, I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I can't breathe. He had a bad cough. Here's a shot my wife said was horrible. I said, thanks, babe. I said, I actually like this because it shows how beat up they were on the trip. Reality. Here's a shot where he's on oxygen the night before wedding. He was suffering. He woke up, and I'll tell you the story tomorrow if you come, but he was suffering. We had to get him on oxygen. I was throwing rocks at windows trying to find our guide, but this is pain. I got a quick shot. It's out of focus, but anyway. Capture the whole story. So for me, I learned on the first trip to capture every little detail. Not just the destination shots, but capturing every little thing, like in their bedroom, when they're getting a shave. I mean, just little details. Capture every little detail because you don't know what pictures they'll use later. Capture everything. This is them walking across for their first look. Getting ready. The first look here, right? Really nervous. He turns around, sees her for the first time. Gives her a big kiss. They're excited. Glasses are on because you could have snow blindness real quick, so you have to wear glasses. And again, it's 0 degrees, 18,500 feet, and we can barely breathe. And I had food poisoning. So I'm like, this is tough. We had literally like about 5 to 10 minutes max of shooting them in the wedding dress because it was that cold. We had to work fast. A few shots of the bride. I threw my camera to the Sherpa. I said, here, take this camera. We didn't have time. I just threw my camera. Take some photos. It's on P mode, right? Just push a button. Just go for it. So I got this shot. My thank you. It's in focus, too. Be fearless. And this is very important because a lot of the weddings that I do, you would think I'm excited about, and I'm like, this is easy. I'm scared a lot of times. Not for me. I'm scared for my couple. Because they're standing on a cliff. They're like, let's do this shot. I'm like, no, you're going to die. Like, no, we can do it. So I have to hold back on what I say. I can't say things like, oh, that's a good spot. Now I'm like, do you think this is a good spot? And I'll say, no, that's a horrible spot. The sun's bad. It makes it look bigger than you really are. It's just not a good area to shoot. I just try to lie to them because I don't want them getting hurt. But you do have to be fearless. You have to be brave because it's hard work, and you're hiking a lot of times. Sometimes you're not hiking. There's different levels where you can pull over in your car, jump over into a creek, and walk along the creek and get some good shots. It doesn't need to be Mount Everest. We went early to base camp. This is base camp before any mountaineers climbing to the summit were there, which means it's colder. But you have chances of seeing the Mount Everest summit earlier in the season because there's less clouds, but it's colder. So we had to be fearless and say, let's hike earlier, even though it'll be colder. And this is what camp looked like. We were the only ones there except for a few other tents. That's it. Usually that place is loaded. And then I'll end with this. Share your story. Oh, it says number 4. Share your story. So this is a shot, and I'll end with this. This is a shot that I published in National Geographic that won an award. And from that, a guy called me and said, hey, I'm from New York and the UK. We love this story because this is an image the day they got married, the day they hiked to base camp to get married. These 2 hearts in the sky appeared. 2 hearts, one empty, one full, like a puzzle. The 2 shall become one. So this is a story that sold. When it went to press, from that, it went viral. Suddenly it was on TV, news media. I had everybody calling me 2 weeks straight. My phone's like zzz, 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 over and over. I couldn't leave my house. I was freaking, I had never had this happen before. I was like, what do I do? People are like, hire a publicist. What's that? Who's that? I had no clue. I was overwhelmed. So from that, we had all these pictures go out. I got calls for media. I got calls for reality shows. I got calls for a TED Talk, which I did just last year. I got inundated with calls. And I have a lot more bookings this year because of this image here. Thank you very much. I hope you make epic images and create adventure weddings for your couples. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charleton Churchill coming up. Charmy Pena next, right here at the Nikon Theater. Charleton Churchill. Next up, Charmy Pena.